Nei hao ma. Hey guys, how's it going? It's me Yoko from Japan. Welcome back to my channel. For those who are new here, might be a little bit confused because I'm wearing this I love Hong Kong t-shirt. But I'm Yoko, I'm Japanese. I was born and raised here in Japan and I've lived all my life here in my mother country, and I'm best known as a huge Trump supporter in Japan. Also, I'm in the category of conservative opinion leader here in Japan. And this t-shirt, by the way, is something I actually got at the airport in Hong Kong because I visited there as a translator 2 years ago. And also, I can't show you this keys because it's my keys to my house, but see, I love Hong Kong. Whee! It's something that I've been using for my house keys. Before I start rambling, let me get started on today's video. In this video, you will learn that what's happening in Hong Kong isn't only a matter of Hong Kong, it's a world matter. And that is the biggest message that I want to deliver to you today. I want to give you the Japanese perspective so you can give yours, or you can ask others about how they view things in Asia and so forth. Sharing is the key to the peace. You know, we need to take the advantage of this information generation and we need to share our information and perspective so that we can grow this mutual understanding. And I believe that peace comes from not just from within but also from understanding each other. Anyway, I talk too much, I know. Okay, in this video you will learn in the first half premise of what's going on in Asia. Of course, Japanese perspective, as I said. It will be about China's behaviors and strategy and Japan's counter strategy, etc. And later half, I'm gonna give you the premise of Hong Kong situation with a deep analysis of what's involving Hong Kong, which includes Japan, US, and China. And also, I will give you the key summary of voices in Hong Kong regarding the extradition bill. And at the end, I will give you the suggestion of what the world needs to do. And I really recommend watching this video on your computer because I put letters in the slides and it will be probably small. So I think bigger screen might be good for your eyes and you won't get frustrated. But at least I will read everything aloud, so hopefully you will understand what I'm talking about. So let's get started. The world is criticizing the bill already, and this is actually the early stage, June 13th. This picture was taken from Sankei Shimbun. So it shows the statements from the US, Britain, EU, and Canada. And these are the statements made by the government officials. Now, so regarding Hong Kong, what do we need to do and why should we even care to begin with? And why do I care from Japan? And why does it matter to those who are in the US? By US, I mean the majority of my viewers. Firstly, I love Hong Kong like this t-shirt says. I have a Hong Kong girlfriends and they are so cool. Hi, if you're watching. And actually, my Hong Kong girlfriends are younger than me. And so they're so young, youthful, energetic, and so smart. Like, given that they are younger than me, and the sense of humor and cultural values and so on, like we have a lot of things in common. And I think the root cause of that is because Japan is largely influenced by the US, like it or not. Hey, I'm Americanized. We have this culture, you know, like the large influence by the US, especially like socially. On the other hand, in Hong Kong, the society is largely influenced by Britain. And so it's like we are sharing this mixture culture, and at the same time, and the buildings there in Hong Kong is so futuristic, like very modern building, especially in the city. I've been out of Japan 4 times in total. I visited Virginia and California. I visited Taiwan a few years ago, and then Hong Kong like 2 years ago. If you ask Japanese people, especially conservative people, they will say that Taiwan is the closest to Japan. They just love Taiwan. And so do I. But what I keep hearing from the conservative people is that Taiwan is very similar to Japan, which I didn't find so. The people are so extremely nice and everything. They speak Japanese also sometimes. I didn't really understand what it means by like being similar, you know. But when I visited Hong Kong, people never told me that Hong Kong is like Japan, but when I visit there, I was like, this is Japan. So close to the sense of Japan, you know, in the city. I just instantly felt the attachment. It's interesting because it's largely influenced by Britain, which I don't know if Hong Kongers actually like the history or not, but I don't want Hong Kong today to be taken over by China. But that's the impression that I got instantly when I visited Hong Kong. And let's talk about political side. I care about Hong Kong for geopolitical standpoint and also rule of law aspect, because on those we Japanese are involved. Now, let me show you the map of China. This is a beginner. When you think of China, this is probably the map that you imagine in your head, right? And now, I want you to remember this picture, the width and the height, and like just, you know, burn it onto your eyes, because I'm gonna show you a different map, okay? So, you good? Remember now? Okay? I'll go to the next slide now. Wait, what is this? The shape is different, the size is different. This map actually shows the real size of China today. China keeps expanding, and these are the places that they swallowed. So you can see Uyghur, Tibet, and Southern Mongolia. Their expansion has gone too far, too deeply, and especially in Southern Mongolia. By the way, as for Mongolia, there's north and south. You are supposed to call the south part as Southern Mongolia, not Inner Mongolia, because Inner Mongolia is the expression that Communist China is imposing to everyone, because they are self-centered, you know. When they see the world with themselves being centered, then when they look at Mongolia, the southern part is the inner side within their borders that they draw, and that is not the truth. Mongolia is Mongolia, right? And the southern part is Southern Mongolia. So that's something that you should remember. And as for Southern Mongolia, what I keep hearing is that the 90% has already gone in the hands of China, and that you can't reverse what's going on there. And that's why I hear that the US is not investing in Southern Mongolia. I consider the US as our true friend, and I love you guys, so I'm gonna be freaking honest with you. The US is the country of rationalism, right? The US is the type of country that invests in other countries that are going through conflicts, so that by invest, like help them and so on, so that when the conflicts are over and when those who you helped, like your friends, have the status in the country, then you can build like a good business partnership and so on. And I'm not judging, it's a cool strategy, you know, that's very smart. But as for Southern Mongolia though, that I hear that the US is not investing in, and that should give you the idea. Southern Mongolia, by the way, established this World Congress in 2016, and it was established inside of the Japanese Diet building, which my husband got the reservation for. But this is a map of actual China, and you can see the previous map. This is as a result of China's violation on human rights and autonomy by force. So let that sink in. And at the bottom of this map you can see Hong Kong, and a little bit above that you can see Taiwan, and further a little bit above that you can see Okinawa. And these are actually China's next target: Hong Kong, Taiwan, Okinawa. In Taiwan, there's this danger of one country, two systems, and in Okinawa we have a governor whose name is Denny Tamaki, and he's pro-China, just like the previous ones. In addition to that, as you know, the Korea problem is there. Not just the Tibet, Uyghur, Southern Mongolia area, but also the circled areas, we have problems there. To give you a better understanding, ding! You can see the face of the politicians. I'm gonna call them pro-China quartet. So at the bottom it's Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, and on the right side it's Denny Tamaki, the Okinawa governor, and you can see, you know, Kim Jong-un, and below is the Moon Jae-in, and these are the leaders that we are having troubles with in Japan. And on the top of that, look at the north. Ding! There's Russia. The circled areas are northern territories of Japan. And I talked about Taiwan, but how China is onto Taiwan is they are trying to impose one country, two systems which Taiwan people reject instantly, because over here in Asia, this is the real threat. We keep seeing what has happened in Tibet, Uyghurs, and Mongolia, even in Hong Kong today, so Taiwan people are really cautious. However, though, there are lots of pro-China people in Taiwan, so really Taiwan is a key place geopolitically, as I said, which will make sense later when I explain more. And another way that China is onto Taiwan is the presidential election coming in January 2020. This presidential election is a quick way for China to legally take over Taiwan. So the current Taiwan president Tsai Ing-wen must win. And what is China trying to do though by expanding? They're having expansionist policy for hegemony. And I showed you all the targeted areas, but you know what they're doing there means that they are trying to get rid of all the obstacles that are in the way because they want to expand for hegemony in the world, which is the battle against the US. Now let's look at China's strategy. These are the things that Japanese conservatives always talk about. Firstly, 100-year marathon. There's a book written by Michael Pillsbury. A 100-year marathon means, as I said before in my other videos, it means the hegemony by 2049, which means 100 years since their establishment of the country. They want to achieve their dream by their anniversary. Another thing to keep in mind is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I would say it's the alliance of anti-West, and Belt and Road Initiative, Made in China 2025, which actually they didn't mention when pressured by the US, so way to go America. And also Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, which I'm not sure if it's working, but it's not about if it's working. What matters is that they don't just talk about the dream, you know, they actually polish their agenda and take actions. And so when something doesn't work out, they will think of another way to do it, so it's really dangerous. And I talked about SCO. This is a map of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I don't think American continent is pictured there, but you can just see that it's a huge cooperation organization. Let that sink in for a minute, because that's serious. Now, why does Japan feel threatened? Why? Because security is threatened by China on top of our cyber and economy aspects. Let me dive in on China's defense budget. I got this data from the Japanese Ministry of Defense that's available on their website. You can see from 1988. Oh, I was 3 at the time. And as you go to the right, the end is 2019, which is this year. You can see how much money they're pouring into their defense budget. Last year, it was 1.11 trillion yuan, meaning 164 billion US dollars. And this year will be 1.19 trillion. That's probably about 175 billion US dollars. And actually there's some explanation at the top, but it is pointed out that China's announced defense budget in 2017 was at least 1.23 times as much as the announced defense budget. China lies all the time, like even when they talk about GDP and all the economic statistics, they always cover the real numbers. So at the bottom it says about 48-fold increase during the last 30 years. 48-fold increase, man. That's crazy. Also, in the last 10 years, it's 2.5-fold increase. And Japan is like, I don't know if you can see, but at the very end, like towards the right side, there's this little red square at the bottom. I think it's not even like 1/3, it's probably almost like 1/4. When I look at this, I'm like, how the hell are we going to protect our country, you know? Of course we have technology, but we don't have laws to activate those, and also China just have people. They have spies everywhere. But yeah, you can see in this chart that China has been preparing. Regarding this, let me read a Bloomberg article a little bit. China set a defense budget growth target of 7.5% in 2019, slower than last year, but still enough to fulfill President Xi Jinping's plan to build a world-class military. Authorities made the announcement on Tuesday in a statement released ahead of the National People's Congress, the annual gathering of China's legislature in Beijing in 2018 before the trade war started to affect China's economy. Officials predicted an increase of 8.1% to 1.11 trillion yuan, 164 billion US dollars. So the prediction is right, so data that we are looking at is correct probably. And with the budget, what they're doing to Japan is this. Senkaku Islands, for example, located in the south of Japan, like around Okinawa. I took it from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. This is an overview of Chinese government vessels confirmed to be present in the marine area surrounding the Senkaku Islands. And they come like every day. They're doing it for fait accompli. And they're probably looking for a chance also. So now look at the Naval Force 1. The picture on the left side is showing that they're expanding the area of their regular activities to the south and also have come into the Japanese contiguous zone as well. And on the right side it shows the Air Force. So in the air, China is expanding eastward and southward. These are based on our statistics. Now this one shows the West Pacific Ocean targeted by China. These pictures are just showing the routes that they are taking in the West Pacific Ocean, and what can be analyzed is that they are taking more advancement with more diverse routes. Now let's talk about South China Sea because it's the real big issue. The picture shows the map of the South China Sea, and you can see the 9-dash line which China has drawn since a long time ago, but they've adopted this since 1953. And you can see the little dots looking islands, you know, but those are the islands claimed by Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, Brunei, Indonesia, and the Philippines under the international law. So that's such a controversial place, but you can see the 9-dash line by China and it's like swallowing everything. These lines just show that they are not the country of rule of law. Not only that, they built artificial islands. They built it for the usage of military bases, and they have 7 bases today. And they are now developing island cities. Can you believe that? They want to build island cities. Why? Not for money, but when there are unarmed civilians there, it's gonna be hard for countries like the US to attack those bases anymore, right? Because there's always a risk. You don't want to kill unarmed civilians, and they're cunning like that. China. I'm like, how can you do that, you know? They are openly using people, their own citizens, as a shield. You know, there is still a risk of being attacked, but they do that. Like, wow. And the US is in the South China Sea taking the freedom of navigation operation, which I, by the way, am greatly thankful for. You can see the rule of law is violated. And why is the world ignoring this? I mean, the US is contributing a lot all the way from the US. But seriously, Asians are suffering. Why is the world letting China do whatever the heck they want? We've all witnessed what they've done in Tibet, Uyghurs, and Mongolia. And today they're doing it in Hong Kong, and we are seeing this. And we are ignoring what's happening in the South China Sea, and that's just crazy to me. But to counter that, Japan came up with this idea. Let me introduce Japan's counter strategy on China. This is the old version. It's called the Asia's Democratic Security Diamond. You can see the image of diamond here, the square. This connects Japan, India, Australia, and Hawaii. And you can see the little arrows there. That's the directions of China, Chinese military, like how they are expanding, and it squares that, you know. So the South China Sea is there, as you can see, but this actually evolved. Bam! Evolved version. Free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. This is not just circling like the areas that China is violating, but it's actually bigger. So yay, way to go. And let me explain free and open Indo-Pacific strategy a little bit to you. Let me briefly show you what free and open Indo-Pacific strategy is about. It's actually adopted by the US as well, so you might know, but it is about 2 continents, Asia that is rapidly growing, and Africa that possesses huge potential of growth, and 2 oceans, free and open Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. And in the strategy, there are 3 key things. And the first thing is what I was talking about, but 1, promotion and establishment of the rule of law, and freedom of navigation, which I mentioned, and free trade, etc. 2, pursuit of economic prosperity, and 3, commitment for peace and stability. And these are the words from the government, so if you're interested, check out their website. And now let me show you the Japan-US counter strategy on China. But let me warn you though that this is just what's commonly known among the conservatives in Japan. If you know what the US is doing as a counter strategy on China, let me know, like all the laws and so on. Okay, so these are the things. So 2012, as I said, Asia's democratic security diamond. And in 2015, actually, we passed security bill just so we can cooperate with other countries militarily. And 2016, as I said, free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. And the following year, the US adopted above, and by December, President Trump signed Asia Reassurance Initiative Act of 2018, which includes free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. And the following year, in March, President Trump signed Taiwan Travel Act. And the following year, which is this year, in the middle of the massive protests in Hong Kong, the US lawmakers reintroduced Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. And I actually admire the sense of security in the US that even Democrats have the good sense of security. The only problem that Democrats have is that they intervene in other countries. But the thing is, even Nancy Pelosi understands security and how things work. But over here in Japan, leftists here mean pro-China, so they're not gonna do anything. They stay vulnerable to China. That's their strategy when it comes to security. And when I see all these bills passed in the US, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So let's look more on strategy. As I said, on the government level, what we are taking is free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. This is taken by both Japan and the US. And at non-government level, we are adopting that as well, and we established Free Indo-Pacific Alliance, which we call FIPA. And this was formed last October in the National Diet building in Japan when Prime Minister Abe was visiting China. And the J20 is coming soon. I said not G20 but J20. But let me talk about FIPA a little bit. It consists of the representatives of Uyghur, Tibet, Southern Mongolia, Taiwan, India, Vietnam, and Japan. And we are expecting more to come, so just Hong Kong. We're gonna have this massive protest in Osaka, which we call J20, and it's hosted by FIPA. And by the way, there's a picture there, but on the top right picture, you can see in the middle there's Ms. Rabia Kadir. She is the activist from Uyghur, and she's called the mother of Uyghur. And she's the president of Free Indo-Pacific Alliance. And on the right side is a Mongolian leader. And on the left side, you see my husband, Hidetoshi Ishii. And I put the picture of my Hong Konger friend. He's coming to J20 as well. But what is J20? This is the protest against Xi Jinping. We Asians are just rising, you know, against Xi Jinping. We have talked to the police, and they understand that there will be lots of foreigners protesting in Japan. And you Americans might be a little bit like weirded out, but this is what we do. These oppressed people in Asia, we come together and we raise our voice. It's our thing. It's an Asian thing. So, but there are so many people that are angry at Xi Jinping. So my guess is that there will be like crowds and crowds of people, like Asian people across the borders, coming together raising our voice, and I think it will be pretty chaotic. And the possible scenario that I keep imagining in my head, I don't want to because law of attraction, but what I'm about to tell you could happen, I think. Bam! This is Nagano Prefecture, right? But so oppressed Asians like Tibetans and Uyghur people came up with the idea. They were like, hey, let's raise our flags, you know, on the streets so that we can be filmed and it will be aired in the whole world, right? It's such a good idea. I think they did this action in the world actually. But on the left side you can see the Genocide Olympics because it's held in Beijing, and you can see the flags on the right side, and this again is in Nagano Prefecture. But it was not only these oppressed Asians that came there. Also, Chinese people came out of nowhere as well. Probably because they have spies everywhere and also they just know how to collect information. These are Chinese people in Japan with their flags and all this. You can see their angry faces, and so this exact thing might happen at J20. So I'm a little worried. I'm really hoping that the police will do a good job protecting us, not vice versa, because it was vice versa in Nagano. Oh, by the way, the name J20 is something that I named as J as in Japan and also justice. So we have put together 20 articles to demand to China. Anyway, G20, J20 are coming soon and we're already on the news. This is Ms. Rabia Cartier. Let me read. According to the government sources, Beijing asked Tokyo in December to handle the matter of Cartier's entry into Japan during Xi's visit, meaning G20, appropriately. The request was made directly to the office of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe via a senior official from China's Ministry of State Security, they said. What this news means is that the Chinese government was pressuring the Japanese government. They told the Japanese government to handle the situation appropriately, meaning that they didn't want Ms. Rabia Cartier to enter Japan because they want to keep their face, you know, they don't want the Uyghur problems to rise because it goes everywhere in the world. It did take a while and there are problems that I can't share with you publicly, but I'm glad though anyway that her visa was issued because this is Japan, this is a free country, this is the country of rule of law. I can't believe that Japan is actually taking China seriously in this sense. But moves seen for G20. June 16th, Secretary of State Pompeo said that Trump will bring up Hong Kong situation at G20, and in 4 days Xi Jinping actually visited North Korea and met Kim Jong-un for the first time in North Korea. It was his first time in 6 years since he became the president of China to visit North Korea. He was that desperate to meet him because this is his diplomatic card, you know. Xi Jinping of course knows that the US, their very enemy, is having troubles against North Korea. You can analyze that Xi Jinping is using North Korea as a card to pressure the US. It's funny to me though because it's like desperation confirmed. Like Xi Jinping actually has to even rely on North Korea. And the following day, the host of G20, Abe, posted G20 in Osaka on Project Syndicate, free and fair trade, digital economy and environment issues. So I'm guessing that these are the things that they will be talking about at G20. And then June 28th to 29th, G20 is happening, and J20, we Japanese and Asians will protest with 20 demands. Aside from J20 though, what oppressed Asians demand against China is freedom. All what these oppressed Asians are asking for is freedom. It's crazy because they are independent nations or nation states and they are somehow taken over by China, and it's like one-sidedly China just invades and takes over and colonizes, and in this modern generation. First of all, it's not fair to begin with, but on the top of that, people just want freedom. Like Tibet Uyghurs, like Mongolia, Hong Kong, Taiwan. They just want independence. And here's the key, even Chinese people are standing up against the Chinese Communist Party because they want democracy. But the Chinese Communist Party and uses force and uses weapons. And let's always remember the Tiananmen Square massacre and all the other revolutions and so on. Oh, and Nobel laureate Liu Xiaobo, who was murdered. Yeah, there are hidden practical concerns though, that you know, Democrats are Democrats. And even though today we are fighting together against the Chinese Communist Party, we are actually teaming up with some Democrats in Asia. So we don't talk about this because it's not appropriate. You know, we are all friends and families, and it's kind of wrong to bring this up. But I want you to understand what's going on in Asia. Precisely, Democrats are Democrats. And another thing is nationalism versus nationalism situation might occur after everything is solved. You know, history repeats itself. We have fought each other all along in the past, right? When nationalism, especially Chinese nationalism, occurs, we can become their enemies. You know, I will show you some examples in this video so you will understand, but like we just don't talk about it, you know, when we are teaming up and being partners and so on. About China though, there's this hidden practical concern that let's say that somehow the Chinese Communist Party regime falls. And when that happens, just like in Soviet Union, parts of China can get independent. It's realistic enough because it has happened before in Soviet Union. And when that happens though, our concern, to be honest with you, is that right now it's only China. And they have lots and lots of nuclear weapons. When the country is divided into pieces, what happens? Each part could have nuclear weapons. That's one of the worst case scenarios. So for that, we really have to make sure that we trust each other today and we need to work on our alliance and so on. Now, let's talk about what is the extradition bill about? Oh yeah, finally! Hong Kong is a former British colony but was returned to Chinese rule in 1997 under a one country two systems deal that guarantees it a level of autonomy. It says returned, but my Hong Kong friends in Hong Kong, they use the expression of fallen. Just so you know. So the core issue in Hong Kong that I see is that China is breaking the promise of one country two systems. I'm not saying that one country two system is a wonderful thing. It's like a death sentence according to my husband, that after 50 years it's like death, right? Like it's gonna be China. But the problem is that it's only 20 years now and it's like the end of 50 years worth, right? It's a total different thing. So I'm not saying that one country two systems is good. I'm not saying that, but China is not keeping the promise, and that is the problem. They're violating what they promised. As a result, there is this increase of autonomy violation and Chinese colonization expanding. And this is actually the same pattern as you can see in Tibet, Uyghur, and southern Mongolia. At the bottom, it might be a little bit too small to see, but this is a summary of what happened in Tibet. Like I read an article written by a famous Tibetan in Japan, and this is basically what the person was saying, you know, like what happened in Tibet. If I summarize that, China makes one-sided deals and then violates them by themselves. That means the local customs are violated, and then China jails or kills those who rise against them with force, and then changes the system because there will be nobody opposing to them, and then gradually changes the system and sends more soldiers along the way, and if necessary there will be massacres by military force and assaulting women, and thus there will be ethnic cleansing succeeding, and bam, the place is taken over by China. I know this sounds crazy, and I know that I kind of, you know, roughly summarized, so it might sound kind of like a joke or I'm not, you know, taking it seriously, but you can't believe what's happening. This is what they're doing in Asia. But the Chinese Communist Party has no soul or heart, and they do this onto other Asians. This is how self-centered they are. Communists, man. Now, concerns of extradition bill. You might already know this, but according to Nikkei Asian Review, if passed, the legislation would allow people in Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China, where many believe suspects would not receive a fair trial, sparking concern over the city's judicial independence and autonomy. And here are some examples of autonomy violation in Hong Kong by China, put together by BBC News. This is what had happened before the bill, okay? And let me read. Rights groups have accused China of meddling in Hong Kong, citing examples such as legal rulings that have disqualified pro-democracy legislators. They've also been concerned by the disappearance of 5 Hong Kong booksellers and a tycoon who then turned up in custody in China. Artists and writers say they are under increased pressure to self-censor. And a Financial Times journalist was barred from entering Hong Kong after he hosted an event that featured an independence activist. So what can be analyzed from this is that China ignores rule of law in general as well. right? And China is treating Hong Kong like it equals to China. And China is violating one country, two systems. And guess what? Hong Kongers can't take it anymore. And as a result, there were umbrella revolution and so on. And at the same time, even independence movement was born. My friend said, there's no other way but independence. The word independence might be a little bit too strong for you, but what they're insisting is actually conservatism. You know, that they want Hong Kong to be Hong Kong and they want to conserve Hong Kong as it is. And that just means independence. As a result, they don't want China to take over. They want China to stop colonizing them. And that just equals to independence. But in reality, what they're doing is conservatism. Anyway, so let me introduce my friend Andy. Andy is the convener of Hong Kong National Party, and it was established in March 2016, and it was the very first political party in Hong Kong to advocate independence. There is 10 to 20% of support. It's coming from where people cannot publicly state their political opinion, just like Trump supporters in the US, you know. Back in the day, during the presidential campaign, some of you actually wrote to me saying that you can't even show your support for President Trump because you will be in danger. So exact same thing is happening in Hong Kong. People support independence, but they can't say because they might be in danger, like real danger. Other people might not even support independence, thinking that it's not realistic enough. You know, that's a way of thinking. So the same year, September 2016, they had Hong Kong legislative election, and my friend Andy wanted to become the candidate. However, he was barred from standing, and unfortunately, he became the first individual barred from participating along with 5 other pro-independence activists. For the election, he was rejected as his oath being not honest. It was not the matter of the procedure, but he was just judged by his political stance. And he was barred from standing. Like, what? And what's interesting is this comment by Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. It was on Nikkei Asian Review, so let me read. Hong Kong's pro-independence movement has evidently got on Beijing's nerves after China's Premier Li Keqiang explicitly dismissed it for the first time in his State of the Nation address Sunday. The notion of Hong Kong independence will lead nowhere. Oh, they are threatened to make such a remark. If he really believed that the independence movement is going nowhere, he wouldn't say such a thing, you know what I mean? So that's interesting. Another thing is the comment by President Xi Jinping at Carrie Lam's swearing-in ceremony in 2017. Let me read the article. He's referring to the independence movement as well. Any attempt to endanger Chinese sovereignty and security, challenge the power of the central government and the authority of the basic law, or use Hong Kong to carry out infiltration and sabotage activities against the mainland is an act that crosses the red line and is absolutely impermissible, he said. What you can analyze from this comment by Xi Jinping is that independence movement is a huge threat for Chinese Communist Party. And therefore, they actually banned Hong Kong National Party soon after. Because Andy is a threat to the Chinese Communist Party, September 2018, the Hong Kong government officially declared Hong Kong National Party to be an illegal society and banned the operation of Hong Kong National Party on the national security grounds under the society's ordinance. And this banning was the first case since 1997, which is the handover. The only way to their survival was banned. What is the society's ordinance though? New York Times actually wrote about it. The Hong Kong government used a colonial-era public security ordinance to ban a small pro-independence political party. See? Colonial era, man! Chinese colonization! Just so you know, none of the Hong Kong National Party's claims are violent. Like, that doesn't involve any violence at all. As I said, China is the one violating one country, two systems in the first place. And China oppresses those who oppose to China's violation by treating them like terrorists, while China is the invaders, while they are like the terrorist ones. And not only that, my friend Andy actually privately gets stalked and everything by the police. I showed you this slide earlier, but you see, Hong Kong has come to the phase of jailing. So Hongkongers today are protesting, and agents know China's tactics, so we are standing together with Hongkongers. Now let me dive even deeper for you to understand what's going on in Hong Kong. Hongkongers are fed up with all this Chinese Communist Party's policies, but what's behind their frustration is actually identity. Let me read a part of BBC News article. While most people in Hong Kong are ethnic Chinese, and although Hong Kong is part of China, a majority of people there don't identify as Chinese. Surveys from the University of Hong Kong show that most people identify themselves as Hongkongers, and only 15% would call themselves Chinese. Do the math, dude. That's like the majority. The majority think of themselves as Hongkongers. The difference is even more stark for the young. A 2017 survey suggested that only 3% of people aged 18 to 29 identified as Chinese. It's like pretty much 100%. People there identify themselves as Hongkongers, so they don't want to be ruled by China. They don't want to be colonized by China. Of course, right? The identity of the majority is Hongkongers, and that's the truth. So that explains the 2 million protesters out of 7.4 million population. So 1/4 of Hongkongers protested. So, and not everyone can make it to the place. So probably like the majority, like almost all Hongkongers are protesting against this. Now, what differentiates Hongkongers from Chinese identity? This is something that I want to go deep with you. Firstly, Hongkongers have their own language, Cantonese, not Mandarin. Inside of China, there are lots of different tribes, but the Chinese Communist Party is saying that Mandarin is the standard language. And they're having the education of that language more and more to, you know, culturally destroy Hong Kong as well. And Hong Kong has a unique culture, which is the mixture of the Eastern and Western culture. And what's interesting is that according to my friend, original Eastern culture was lost in China through their revolutions, but not in Hong Kong. No wonder, because I felt pretty warm in Hong Kong. And there's the influence of the British Empire. Okay, next thing, social system. So the Hong Kong social system is British, which shapes people's personality. For example, not all, but culturally, Chinese people actually eat dogs. To be fair, I've seen protests inside of China not to eat dogs, but today still eat dogs, but not Hong Kongers. So next, let me tell you what Hong Kongers are fed up with. It's China affecting Hong Kongers' living. Did you know that there are Chinese smugglers in Hong Kong? Chinese smugglers, they buy up diapers, formula milk powder, etc. for resale. You can see these type of things on the news, like if you Google it. And also there are shoppers that come for daily products as well. And as for smugglers, it's illegal export, you know, because Hong Kong has different customs and regulatory regimes from China. And this is also creating cultural and economic anxieties on resources and prices for Hong Kongers. And I found a Hong Kongers comment on Huffington Post from 2014. Everything is snatched up by them, meaning Chinese. Our daily necessities, milk powder and diapers, our study opportunities, job opportunities, everything is gone just because the government lets them come. And that is the honest voice from Hong Kongers, because I hear these from my Hong Konger friends as well. Now, this picture should give you the idea. They come like this. This is them waiting for the taxis and so on. You see how much they have bought? Doesn't even fit, man. This is what they're doing. You know, Hong Kongers can't shop, and their business get affected as well. And there's this frustration of Hong Kongers. So, for example, this is a picture I saw on the article of IB Times. It comes from 2015. The sign said, on the left, it says defend. And the other two says, I am from Hong Kong. It is from the march during a demonstration against mainland traders, right, in Hong Kong. Again, people are saying that they're Hongkongers and they need to defend. And to give you more ideas, here are some words from Hongkongers interviewed on IB Times. Mainland shoppers are clogging up Hong Kong's transport infrastructure, malls and sidewalks, and the proliferation of shops catering to them is pushing up rents for the locals. It's hard to take the MTR, which is their subway there, because it's too full. House prices are high, food prices too, and it can be difficult to find a cheap noodle shop in your neighborhood, he adds, because they've been replaced by branded goods outlets. It doesn't affect the rich in their sedans, but other people are fed up. And I can totally relate because I live in Fukuoka Prefecture, which is the north part of Kyushu Islands of Japan, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I live on the southern island of Japan. Japanese politicians are pushing the policies to welcome tourists to boost our economy, which I think is awfully wrong to do. There should be a level, like the limit of that, but they want to welcome more and more. And where I live, Fukuoka Prefecture, I live in Fukuoka City, which is the center and the biggest out of all the Fukuoka Prefecture. What's happening is that there are lots and lots of, oh my god, I even feel like tearing up right now. There's so many tourists from China and South Korea, like oh my gosh, too many. Like the peak was a few years ago, I feel. It's gotten a little bit better, but oh boy, there are too many. They spread around, they come in groups and they occupy the stores and it's so frustrating. Like I just want to shop, you know, like for my necessities, but they're there like being loud and spreading around and buying things and blah, blah. And all the signs in Japan too, it has lots of Chinese and Korean language, and I'm like, only English is needed, but they prepare like Chinese. Even at train stations or airports, you will see Chinese and Korean language, and it's in the way of like us Japanese, you know, we just want to see the Japanese sign and we have to wait, you know, for our own language in our own country, and that's just crazy to me. The sad part is that this is a little off topic, but we do need those signs because they don't understand English, and on the top of that, their toilet manners and so on are different from us, which can be problematic. So at least for toilet, I understand. They even come by ships because Fukuoka is close and blah blah blah, and I have all this frustration even in Japan. So I can imagine in a sense, but I can't imagine how frustrated Hong Kongers are. Anyway, another thing China is affecting Hong Kongers living on is Chinese money laundering. They are moving their assets to Hong Kong for their safety. They buy real estate in Hong Kong and it's too expensive for Hong Kongers to afford today, and the list goes on and on and on. And my question is the international society aware of these problems by China? And as a result of such frustration, they even chant saying that we are not Chinese or no Chinese colonization. I will play a video here. promise of one country, two systems, as I said, is a 50 years long promise since 1997, right? But in 2017, when I visited Hong Kong for the 20th anniversary, people were grieving the violation of autonomy in Hong Kong by China, saying that it's been 20 years since Hong Kong has fallen, or people have become slaves, or simply saying condolences, and that Hong Kong is now under Chinese colonization. People are not happy at all, and that's the true voice. And this is a gathering, as you saw in the video. There's a flag of Hong Kong independence as well. It's blurred, but yeah. Are you guys keeping up with this? Like what I'm talking about? Because we're gonna go even deeper. This will be even more interesting. Okay, let's go. So political groups in Hong Kong, and I put together this comparison of Hong Kong, US, and Japan because I thought that you guys would understand it better this way rather than me just talking about Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, there are 4 political groups. 1, pro-establishment. Basically, just imagine Chinese people living in Hong Kong kind of mindset. And 2, pan-democrats. These are Democrats, but they are anti-Japan, anti-US. And 3, self-determination. I think their identity is more like Chinese, but they just want democracy. You know, they are against the Chinese Communist parties and the dictatorship and so on, but they just want democracy, and that's all. And 4, independence. And to me, this is conservative because they just want to conserve, and therefore conservatives. And independence is just their means, to my eyes. And in order to understand this better, I put US there. So pro-establishment in Hong Kong is like socialists, like Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez in the US. And the second one, pan-democrats, will be people like Antifa and social justice warriors who are just angry, you know, anti-US people. And the self-determination people will be, I think, is like moderate Democrats and neocons in the US. In America, I think people are proud to be Americans, so it's a little bit confusing there. I can't make the comparison of 100%, so it's vague there. But as a big picture, I think though the moderate Democrats and neocons fall into here. And 4 is conservatives. And in Japan, the first one, pro-establishment in Hong Kong or socialists in the US, will be communist, meaning Japanese Communist Party, which was established as the branch of Comintern back in the day. Their headquarters used to be in Soviet, but today it's in Beijing. Pan-democratic people such as the Antifa and social justice warriors in the US will be the Constitutional Democratic Party in Japan. In Japan, there used to be this big Democratic Party, but due to their election tactics, the big Democratic Party was divided into, I think, 2 groups. This one, the Constitutional Democratic Party, is the party made by the extreme leftists of the former Democratic Party. So it's pretty leftist, and they are very, very similar to pan-democrats in Hong Kong and Antifa social justice warrior type in the US, because they are the angry people that criticizes and bashes others, especially Japan. And the third will be LDP, Prime Minister Abe's party. I think this is just perfect because yes, they support the democracy, but they're like the mixture of moderate Democrats and neocons inside. And Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is a conservative politician, as I keep saying, but he belongs to LDP because I think he's the 3rd generation or something. He was born in this rich politician family. He just is powerful. LDP actually stands for Liberal Democratic Party. So there you have it. And the 4th group, independents in Hong Kong, conservatives in the US, will be people like us, like true conservative people that are thought to be like extreme and far right and whatsoever, but we're just conservatives. It's just that the society is centered on the left side, so we just, as a result, we are on the right side. What's interesting is that as for the extradition bill in Hong Kong, when we compare Hong Kong and Japan, this is what happens. Somebody from self-determination, Demosisto girl to be exact, like in the middle of all this massive protests are going on, she visits Japan and she had a press conference and gave a lecture and so on at the university, and Japanese people were like, "Ooh, like Hong Kong, like go, you go girl," kind of thing. Not in a happy tone, but you know what I mean. But when she visited, what was interesting to me was the Japanese extreme left was being friendly to her, taking pictures and writing things to support her, even though with what I showed you earlier, even though it doesn't match, the extreme left was treating her like their friend. Part of me is a little hesitant to explain this because it might not be the right time, because this is a time that we have to all unite internationally with Hong Kongers to fight against the Chinese Communist Party. I know that, but in politics you have to always look ahead, so that you don't raise the wrong concerns or powers and so on. This is what's happening, so I just want to make sure that the world knows what's going on in Hong Kong. So here we go. These are the protests in Hong Kong, not China or South Korea, but this is in Hong Kong. The left picture, the flag with, I believe it's a Prime Minister Abe's face on it, they are burning the flag. And the picture on the right, that flag is stepped on by the comfort women statues. So they're doing anti-Japan activities, but these are done by pan-Democrats. As I said, pan-Dems are like Antifa type of people, very hateful, right? For these people in Hong Kong though, they are agitating nationalism, according to them. Like, we have talked to them actually in Japan because they visited Japan, and we're like, what the hell is going on with this? Just we don't discriminate these like people with different political thoughts. We genuinely want to know why. Like, why do you do that? And what are you thinking, right? They're just agitating nationalism because their identity is Chinese, right? And China, in the mainland, is not doing enough. Like, they're not proud enough. By these protests like this, they are agitating nationalism. But pan-Dems even are Democrats, and Democrats in Hong Kong mean that they're fighting against the Chinese communist regime in a way. Then enemy's enemy is a friend, and they do come visit Japan even, and somehow they are doing anti-Japan activities. So what the hell is going on? What are you thinking, right? Like, you don't get to bash somebody and ask help to that person. Sorry, I had to change the camera because the batteries ran out. And they're doing this not just against Japan, but also against the US actually. Be aware, okay? You ready? Go. So look at the guy with the long hair on the right side. He is so-called long hair. Because he has long hair. And nice shirt, man. These are pan-Dems welcoming Steve Bannon when he visited Hong Kong in 2017. So these are the pan-Dems doing anti-US activities when he visited. And the signs say, no racism, no Islamophobia, no hatred, no Trump, no hatred, no Bannon. See the next picture? Steve Bannon met by protests in Hong Kong. In the picture, there's a sign, no to racism and nationalism. Another sign says, toxic nationalist, while agitating nationalism. So that's interesting, but this is actually posted on Socialist Alternative in the US. On Socialist Alternative, this is what they said. A statement by the protesters included the following: solidarity with anti-Trump and anti-racist protests in USA, and down with Bannon and the alt-right. No to Islamophobia, support refugee rights and oppose racism in China, Hong Kong, and America. Struggle for democratic rights and equality is international, not to nationalism and war. The more you know. Also, there's this guy named Joshua Wong in Hong Kong. He's very young. He's the co-founder of the party Demosisto. But there's articles like this. For example, this is the Wall Street Journal, and it says, pro-Beijing media accuses Hong Kong student leader of US government ties. Basically saying that Joshua Wong is getting money from the US, and also he was raised by the US. So that's interesting. Like, you guys should dig it, and I want you to let me know what's really going on. If you really want to help, you should support the independence movement, in my opinion. Okay, so another person from the party Demosisto, this is Agnes Jo. She's kawaii, right? She actually speaks Japanese. Like, wow, that's pretty impressive coming from somebody who's speaking a second language myself. Oh, by the way, this lady is known as the goddess of democracy. Who Agnes is standing next to in the left picture is Mr. Edano from the Constitutional Democratic Party. So he's like a pandem in Japan, but somehow she is taking picture with her. And on the right side, he's not really a communist, but he's like communist level, extreme far left. His name is Taro Yamamoto, and he used to be an actor. He's just supported by like radical left, like dangerous, like violent radical left. These are pro-China people in Japan, and somehow Agnes took pictures with them. Why? Because Japanese leftists in general are approaching her to use her. And the screenshot on the right side is the newspaper of the Japanese Communist Party. And there's a picture in black and white. It's actually a gathering in Tokyo supporting Hong Kong. They are on the side of those Hong Kongers, even though in other things they are all pro-China. So that's what's happening in Japan. And by the way, when Agnes held a press conference that looks like this on the left side, and on the right side, this was when she was speaking at Meiji University. And it's not her first time to speak at the university, because there are professors helping her to speak at the universities, and we even know the name, like Professor Ako and Professor Kurata. And I believe Joshua Wong has visited the university as well. The human rights topics are like the leftist expertise in Japan. Leftists just go to human rights things, but somehow they never accuse the evil that is oppressing everyone. They are not logical in the way. So Agnes herself should be fall into the category of moderate Democrats or neocons or something like that. She is a pro-Japan person, but she is teaming up with those who are anti-Japan. I don't know if she knows who she is teaming up with. So I think the communication and explanation is needed, because it's really dangerous, because it will come back to her like a boomerang. She probably wants Hong Kong to stay as Hong Kong, and she wants to have democracy there. But who she is teaming up with in Japan is those who want to expand China in Asia to swallow Hong Kong as well. And if you're wondering this now, you are a good listener. Why are Japanese leftists approaching to Hong Kongers? I'll tell you. Here is the agenda of Japanese leftists. What they're doing is that they are spreading Antifa, anti-racism, anti-Abe Trump and US campaign in Japan to plan the image of anti-regime. And the reason why they approach Hong Kongers is because they want to brainwash people with anti-regime aspect from Hong Kong using Hong Kongers. And at the same time, they actually keep doing the anti-US based actions in Okinawa. They are anti-US based and military because they are anti-alliance. They want to kick out the US and invite China in. So they actually send activists to Okinawa from labor union, teachers union, and all the retired leftists pretty much. So the activists in Okinawa are mostly pretty old. And they drive the public opinion on Abe administration to agitate the detachment and independence of Okinawa. So this is about Okinawa. They want to give Okinawa to China. These are the activists in Okinawa. These are the flags of unions. The reason why they hold up union flags is because they want to show which union brought more people to the rallies. So it's the inner power struggles. So that's interesting. In the left picture, they're saying that they don't need US base anywhere, that the US military base have to be closed and be withdrawn. And the picture on the right side says defeat Abe administration. And the next picture, no thank you for US bases in Okinawa. You see the old people faces, right? Like these are old people dispatched from unions to Okinawa and they get paid. Well, it's supposed to be like a transportation fees, but they still get paid anyway. And at the same time, they use all kinds of opportunities to attack the US military, saying no Osprey because it sometimes crashes and so on. The top right picture shows rape by US soldier. It looks like they're protesting against the US soldier that raped innocent Okinawa girl, but they're actually using the case to agitate the hatred on the US military in order to kick out the US military base. It's the same logic. And it says remove, right? Because they want to remove the base. They don't care about the victim. And the bottom picture is Get Out Marines, as it says, and there's a picture of Osprey. Another one, as you can see, there's a face of Prime Minister Abe, and at the top it says that Prime Minister Abe is a pet of the US, criticizing him for, you know, being friends with the US. And how desperate are they? This desperate. So this man is laying down almost under the police vehicle. He's actually hoping to be run over by the police. That's crazy, right? Actually, later this guy kind of got run over, and the policeman said that he couldn't see him from the driver's seat. Of course, right? But it was the police officer that got arrested and not him, even though he's bothering the police work, right, which is a crime. And also Okinawa protesters get on the cars. And I'm so sorry for the American soldiers there. These protesters come like zombies. On the plate it says why. It means that the person is involved in the US base, probably American, that's in the car. Just like Communist China, they don't care about the rule of law or even manners. In Japan, actually compare them to monkeys, as I showed you before in an old video of me comparing the Japanese leftists with the American leftists. So what you need to understand on the agenda of the Japanese leftists is this. Leftists in Japan are pro-China, which leads to the next thing. The support and the help of Japanese leftists on Hong Kong mean they are using Hong Kong to detach Okinawa for China. They are onto Okinawa, so this is really what they've been working on. Now, finally, let's talk about the protests against the extradition bill. So, protest history of Hong Kong, 1997 was the handover, but after a few years, in 2003, there was a protest of 500k Hongkongers on Article 23 of the Basic Law. And 2007 and 8, protest for universal suffrage. 2014 is the famous one, protest for universal suffrage, called Umbrella Revolution, and they used tear gas, pepper spray, etc., and protesters got arrested. And 2019 is this year, the protest against the extradition bill with 2 million protesters. What I'm trying to say is that they've been fighting all along, not just now. As for the extradition bill, I put together everything chronologically so that you understand what really happened. April 3rd was when the debate started. June 9th, protests of 1 million people happened, and that's when the Molotov cocktails were thrown to the police, and the following day there was a clash with the police, and Molotov cocktails and knives were found, and there were 19 people that were arrested. Then a press conference was held by the police, and they said mafia must be involved. And that's like ding ding ding, that's the sign of maneuver. Why? Because back in 2014, mafia was employed by the Chinese side to riot, according to Radio Free Asia, which is a trusted source. So in 2 days, there was a news that 72 people were injured, and that's when rubber bullets were used in the head, and tear gas directly aimed at persons, meaning violence by Hong Kong police occurred. However, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam said the other way around, calling the protests organized riots. At the same time, there was a cyber attack from China on Telegram. Telegram is the application that the protesters often use for organizing events in Hong Kong. And the next day, US lawmakers reintroduced Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. And in 2 days, extradition bill was postponed. The following day, there was the protest of 2 million people because Hongkongers are not fooled by the postponement. What they claimed was the complete withdrawal of the extradition bill and the resignation of Carrie Lam and the release of the arrested protesters and also the recall of riot claim. After this massive protest of 2 million people, Carrie Lam personally apologized without bowing. So Hongkongers are saying that it was not sincere. And at the same time, on the same day, Secretary of State Pompeo said that President Trump will bring up Hong Kong situation at G20. And the next day, Joshua Wong, from the system who was jailed was released. I thought he was gonna be, jailed for 1 more month, but I don't know. And on June 20, joint statement was made by the protester groups. They demanded 4 things to the Hong Kong government with the deadline, which I will show you later. But since they couldn't get what they wanted, they executed the Operation Protect Hong Kong City Blooms and non-cooperation movement in all of Hong Kong as they had declared. And just so you know, G20 is coming on June 28 to 29. Oh, there was even a death threat, allegedly from the protester side. They don't know who did it, so it's probably another maneuver as well. But you can just tell that the Hong Kong government had to postpone the bill because they wanted to keep the face of Xi Jinping at G20, because leaders will use Hong Kong card diplomatically to pressure China, obviously. So they said that they will postpone. Postponing means that there will be a restart and the bill might pass, especially when there's nothing threatening for China like G20. So after G20, I will be really cautious. But the problem is that protesters will be tired and they have the social responsibility to fulfill and so on. Postponing doesn't mean that it's a win. It's nothing has changed. An apology is something that they came up with to end the debate, but it didn't work. But because again, Hong Kongers can't see it through what they're trying to do until complete withdrawal. It's not over and we need to keep fighting. So now let's talk about the violence of the police. These are 3 major chiefs, and what's interesting is that 2 of them are actually foreigners. So I don't know how the system works there. Of course, chiefs give the orders, right? And then the policemen fire. You can see that they are aiming at the citizens. With the Japanese common sense, in situations like this, we will shoot in the air, like warning shots, but not this. They are just aiming at the citizens to injure them. And I guess that they wanted to injure people so that by seeing all these physically injured protesters, people will go home or some sort. Maybe that's their tactic, but at the same time, things like Tiananmen Square massacre has happened, so maybe they just don't care to begin with. On the right side, this is a picture of I believe is a tear gas, and it says, "Do not fire directly at persons." But they are firing these directly at persons. Also, the white guy is giving orders here. And on the right side, you can see the police are there to harm the people. I think people are getting kind of numb that this is what happens at protests. No, it's not something that happens at protests. At protests, we just express, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of everything that's backed up by constitutions. For example, at anti-Trump rallies, this would never happen, because if you do, the administration would be just over, right? Forever long. Somehow this is allowed in Hong Kong, and what do you guys think about that? This video was shared on Agnes Cho's Twitter. I know it's blurry, but I hope you can understand what's going on. But there's a guy in the picture on the left side, and the guy was just standing there alone by himself, doing nothing, right? And then the policeman just like come running to him and grab him from behind and take him down, which is the next picture on the right side. And they beat the shoot out of the guy in a group. Imagine this happening in the US. You can't, because that would be a huge social problem. And there is blood too. I am so sorry, Hong Kongers, that this is happening. And here are my questions. Who are the policemen protecting? And where is autonomy? Where is democracy? And what happened to one country, 2 systems? One country, 2 systems still is a bad thing, and it's like a death sentence. But it's not even 50 years and this is happening. It looks to me that China is trying to finish Hong Kong to take over. Citizens that are just only raising their voice in non-violent way. The police doesn't even care if they freaking die. That's the impression. I am so sorry though that our government is really weak. Like on human rights issues, it's actually Japan that does the least. Like for example, the US actually contributes a lot. Still though, why is this happening? There are protesters today and they have to be kind of armed. They're wearing these glasses and they cover themselves with special clothes and they use the umbrella. Just so you know, the umbrella revolution, it comes from where the defense with the umbrella, so that's a symbol. But another thing to mention is that executive chief Carrie Lam was called by pro-China Alice McMahon. She's a legislator for pro-China party in Hong Kong, read as that, and Mac has fully supported the extradition bill. And she kept pushing it to the citizens. But now that it's postponed, and even Carrie Lam apologized, so she kept working on it, so she's now upset and angry, and the postponement in the first place was not notified to her, and she's upset at that. It was not only postponed, and also Carrie Lam apologized, so the relation between the government and the pro-China people inside of Hong Kong is now broken according to the standard. Now, Chinese intervention cyber level. Let's talk about it a little bit too, because I mentioned earlier. So China's cyber attack, which occurred on June 12th. Let me read the part from Mashable. It's not the first time Telegram has been hit with a suspected DDoS attack originating from China. In 2015, the company experienced an attack just as China was set to crack down on human rights lawyers who were using the service. They use cyber attacks to stop protests. Like, wow. Actually, Japan is not excluded. This is like information war, right? The screenshot is Sankei Shimbun, but a lot of media outlets reported this actually in Japan. But NHK World, which is located in China, tried to air the footage of Hong Kong demonstration, and it just went blank, like black. So let's look at slogans. This on the right side is a joint group statement, which I mentioned earlier. So these are the 4 things that they claim, and there's a deadline by June 12th, which already passed. And also it says no resignation because Carrie Lam is just a puppet of China, they said. Which I actually do not agree with. Like, you should just demand whatever you want to demand. Their demands were not responded, so this is what happened. They went to the headquarters of the police. The description of this picture said, Secretary for Security John Lee and Police Commissioner Stephen Low must step down after tear gas was unleashed against demonstrators. Let's look at other slogans. This is Global Solidarity with Hong Kong group on Facebook. So these are the common things that Hong Kongers are demanding today. And this is their Facebook page, and people in other countries were protesting and they showed the pictures of that, and I could see Australia, Britain, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, South Korea, Taiwan, and US, so that's good. Other slogans, this was seen on the Hong Kong University Students Union. It's actually a flyer. It says protect yourselves, and also no withdrawal and no stop. Meaning that the suspension means Hong Kong government will keep pushing the bill, so therefore unless they withdraw the bill, they will not stop. Or this is actually a flyer of the session held by the Current Affairs Committee at Hong Kong University Students Union Council. And it says, our rights before police power. The violence of the police is a huge problem in Hong Kong, and Hong Kongers are talking about it, and I think the world should talk about it as well. Now let's work on the analysis of Hong Kong government, shall we? The Hong Kong government was planning to pass a bill before July 1st, the handover anniversary, and they tried to trick the world into thinking that the citizens are the terrorists. So for that, they wanted to arrest those protesters, and apparently they did aim at the people. An extradition bill got postponed, but it was for G20 to protect China's pride and appearance and negotiations. And it's just ended for now, and it doesn't mean the end. And so protesters will not stop. And what we should all keep in mind is that in 2014, the government waited enough for the citizens to be tired out. And that's how they won. We have to keep in mind that they might wait for that to happen again. So let me suggest several things. It's actually a long list of things. And these are the suggestions made by me, like personally. So if you have your ideas, please let me know in the comment section. So what the world needs to do on Hong Kong, what I think is that firstly, protect Hongkongers from physical injuries. I don't know what we can do from the outside, but at least we have to acknowledge that they need protection. Like we can't go intervene, so what we can do at least is to give the humanitarian aids and supplies. The supplies like helmets, masks, tape, and cling film, but it's difficult because we can't do it through the government. Are there like organizations that accept that sort of things? I don't know. I have to look into that. Also, in order to protect Hongkongers, we have to make sure that they have no vulnerability, such as in, massacres by communist China. In China, that people are not armed, and that's just unfair. So I think armors for valid defense is very much needed. The police is perfectly shielded and they have weapons, and who are just trying to insist their opinion is not armed. And that's just, the battle is just not fair. Like, look at the picture. I know I'm only talking about the ideal and I'm not being realistic enough maybe, but I just want you to acknowledge the picture that it's not fair. The second thing is pressuring China. Make one country, two systems black and white. I think this is a core thing to do. It has to be black and white. It's so difficult because it's so blurred, and China is taking advantage of that because that's their intention in the first place. So we have two options. A, get rid of one country, two systems, meaning independence, or war. B, carry on. And also we have to insist that the world is not stupid or blind, and we could do that by using the mainstream media and social media. Public opinion is the weapon in this information war, so we have to use that. The second thing is use G20 at its full potential. It's so good that G20 is happening very soon, and not only that, it's gonna happen in Japan for the first time, where I'll be at actually with the protest G20. As I keep repeating myself, it's not a Hong Kong matter, it's a world matter. It's about hegemony in the world, so of course the leaders in the world have to talk about it. And by the way, these two things that I mentioned, these are only reacting to what China is doing. So what I suggest is this: Hong Kong matters are not the matter of Hong Kong and the world problem and hegemony, as I said. So join the alliance movement. By joining, I'm talking about you guys, you watching this video. You join this alliance movement, and you can share the information about J20, but we could come up with other ideas. Please feel free to contact me. The website contact form would be nice. If you love peace, stop all of China's strategic moves that are against the rule of law. I'm not here to interfere Chinese politics like domestic politics, but in this modern generation, we have to all follow the rule of law. Without common sense, we can't work together. Without common values, we can't work it out together. Let's say that we're to play soccer game, and when we start kicking the ball, China abruptly just start carrying the ball like rugby or something. And in this international society, we need to all agree on rule of law, or else you can't play. That's supposed to be the common sense, right? So what we are asking is China to stop violating. If I may list a little bit more, how to stop China's expansionism is, I don't want to be reactive, so go stronger on US-China trade war, which is kind of risky for Japan, but in the long run, we will win, by winning, meaning we will attain freedom. And also pressure North Korea and other allies of China, right? Their powers needs to shrink. And protect Hong Kong, Taiwan, especially the election, and Okinawa, and tighten the alliance of Japan and the US and elsewhere in the world, and they should involve the strategy of Indo-Pacific strategy, and liberate Japan from the current constitution and economy, and by that gain more defense budget with its usage. And that's what I need to work on as a Japanese, and contribute in the South China Sea. More joint exercises and so on, and again, this costs a lot, so Japan needs to have more defense budget. You know what? If you guys could tell Japan to have more defense budget, coming from like ordinary citizens, like a bunch of you raise your voice to ask Japan to have more defense budget to counter China's expansionism, That'd be great, because Japanese people don't listen to each other. We listen to what the world is saying always, so might be a good thing. I don't know. Lastly, we should involve the mainstream media. I know that you guys don't like fake news, but the mainstream media is still strong, so what we need to do is just build win-win relationship. And what you can do right now, as of right now, is to share this video or spread information shared in this video. I'll put a bunch of links in the description box, so and also share the information of J20 and FIPA as well, please, because J20 is something that the government knows. Our action is a huge deal, and there will be, you know, lots of media covering our action as well. Yeah, share the information about J20 and you will not regret it. Especially if you can send the website to like media people, especially like Fox News and Breitbart, or I don't know, BBC, CNN, all kinds of. We need to get English coverage. And then lastly, the important thing is to communicate, and communicate. So politically, I think we have reached the end. Congratulations, guys. But lastly, you know, I've put so much into this, and I believe that what I'm doing will contribute to the world peace. So if you want to engage in the world peace like me, then support me. So I'm on Patreon, where you can financially support me. I mean, because this is like my work. And I'm on Etsy. The picture on the right side is my recent work. Link in the description, but also you can search by Random Yoko. And please also subscribe to this channel because it helps a lot. And follow me on all social media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And that's about it. Guess what, guys? I've been sitting here since 9:30 at night, which is pretty late, I know, but right now, oh my god. Oh my gosh, it's 2 in the morning. Ah! Yoko is crazy. Yoko is crazy. Ah, thank God my husband is not home. Anyway, I really hope that this video gave you some perspective. I truly believe this kind of understanding with each other will bring the world peace. So anyway, thank you so much for watching till the end. You guys are amazing. Like seriously, if you hit the last minute like this, man, you're one of a kind. Thank you so much again for watching this video. In Cantonese, I believe I say doze. Thank you so much, guys. I will talk to you soon. Bye.